Less than a month ago, you were at the White House. You seemed very cordial, friendly with President Trump. The two of you were joking. You said you were going to walk away with a good deal. He said that we would be very happy. Is the U.S. toying with Canada, and how did your relationship with Donald Trump go south so fast?
It's a question for him.
It was one of those moments you don't forget. At the closing press conference of the ASEAN Summit 2025, a reporter asked the one question that had been building for weeks. Less than a month ago, you were smiling alongside President Trump at the White House. You both joked about walking away with a good deal. So what happened? How did things go south so fast? Mark Carney didn't flinch, he didn't explain, he didn't dodge. He simply said, "That's a question for him." 7 words: calm, measured, and devastating. And just like that, the tone of Canada's relationship with Washington shifted. Because behind that one line was a message, not just to Trump, but to every world leader watching. Canada is no longer playing along with unpredictable politics. Carney's face didn't move. His tone didn't rise, but the meaning was unmistakable. This wasn't an outburst, this was strategy, a quiet, deliberate signal that Canada is now charting its own course, that if Trump wants to treat global trade like a campaign tactic, he'll be doing it alone. And from that moment on, the press conference took a new shape. Every answer Carney gave reinforced that same message: strength through composure, clarity without confrontation. He spoke of alliances with Asia, trade with Europe, and partnerships that don't rely on temperamental leaders or political games. It was Carney at his most disciplined and his most powerful. Because what he showed today wasn't anger, it was resolve. Canada, under his leadership, is no longer trying to keep up with Washington's mood swings. It's building its own future. One deal, one summit, one calm answer at a time. And as Trump retreats into deflection, Canada stands taller than ever, steady, confident, and impossible to ignore. This wasn't just diplomacy, it was a warning wrapped in professionalism, and Carney delivered it without raising his voice.
Prime Minister, given everything that we've seen, do you really think the United States is interested in making a trade deal with Canada?
Look, we are their second largest trading partner. We provide a series of essential goods for their economy. We are one of many providers, but we provide in some areas essential goods for their economy. And we create more room for them to do other things. I'll give you an example. If you look at Canadian exports of aluminum to the United States, and aluminum is bauxite and energy. I mean, there's a little more to it, but you can simplify it to that. The embedded energy in the Canadian aluminum exports, which provides 60% of the aluminum to the U.S. market, is the equivalent of the energy of 10 Hoover dams in the United States. Now, is the best use of that scale of energy, creating that scale of energy to make aluminum in the United States, as opposed to continue to foster and power the AI revolution, which the U.S. is leading, or power homes and others. I mean, these are decisions for the United States to make. Point being, as a supplier to the United States, and I gave aluminum as one, I could give many examples, we are an important supplier in many areas. As well, we are a large customer. You know, for over 30 states, Canada is the largest export customer for those states in the United States. So there is a very strong, deep trading relationship, and there is an alignment of interests in many areas. And that's the reason why we have elements of the arrangements that we have today with a large degree of low tariff trade and the benefits from that. So, you know, we're ready to have those discussions to further improve them, and we'll have them when it's appropriate. But we're not resting, because We can build, the return on building at home is far greater than the hit from trade turbulence with the United States. And the opportunities internationally are considerable. And candidly, Canada has not focused on the relationships to the same extent as we should have in any trading environment with the United States, let alone a situation where they're changing their trade policy. And that's what we're doing now.
The second question opened the floodgates. When asked if the U.S. was even serious about a trade deal, Carney didn't miss a beat. He issued one of the clearest economic reality checks of his career. Calmly, he reminded the world Canada supplies 60% of America's aluminum, the energy equivalent of 10 Hoover dams. He noted that in over 30 U.S. states, Canada, not China, not Mexico, is the largest export customer. And then came the line that may define his tenure. We are an important supplier in many areas as well. We are a large customer. It was direct, restrained, and piercing. A diplomatic way of saying what had long gone unsaid. The U.S. needs Canada just as much as Canada needs the U.S. In that moment, Carney reframed the entire conversation, from dependence to mutual necessity. He drew a line between the Canada that once waited for goodwill and the Canada that now negotiates from strength. The message was crystal clear. This is no longer a one-way relationship.
I'll ask a version of this so you can answer.
I figured you might.
If it is true that a TV ad, that you were close to a deal, exchanging term sheets, and a TV ad caused all of this to be canceled, halted, Trump does not want to meet, are you upset at Premier Doug Ford for running this ad? If this is true that this ad spoiled something that was very close?
Look, I'd say the following, which is that in any complicated, high-stakes negotiation, you can get unexpected twists and turns, and you have to keep your cool during those situations. It doesn't pay to be upset. Emotions don't carry you very far. And we had made progress, to repeat, and we stand by the progress that had been made. The Government of Canada does. And we are ready, when appropriate, to pick that up. And I'll just re-emphasize that it is the responsibility of the Government of Canada to have these negotiations. And others will have opinions, and others welcome free advice, unsolicited advice is entirely appropriate. Every Canadian is a stakeholder in these negotiations. Every Canadian is a stakeholder in the fact that we're making progress in ASEAN, that we have the agreement with Indonesia, that we have just decided to accelerate trade talks with the Philippines, with ASEAN as a whole. Every Canadian has a stakeholder, is a stakeholder in the evolution of our relationship with China and the discussions that we will be having at APEC with giants there. So that's the focus.
By the third question, the press corps realized what they were witnessing. This wasn't about trade policy anymore. It was about posture. A reporter asked if Doug Ford's ad had angered Trump enough to tank a near-final deal. Carney could have pointed fingers. He didn't. Instead, he offered a masterclass in leadership. It doesn't pay to be upset. Emotions don't carry you very far. That single line said it all. The contrast between Carney and Trump couldn't be clearer. One leads with calm, the other lashes out. Carney made it clear. Canada will return to the table, but only on its own terms, when conditions are right, not when Washington cools off. Then, without missing a beat, he pivoted. Canada isn't standing still. Talks with the Philippines, Indonesia, the entire ASEAN bloc, all moving forward. Negotiations with China expanding. This wasn't a threat, it was a signal. Canada is open for business, and it no longer waits for U.S. permission. Carney's strategy isn't to clash, it's to outlast, because in diplomacy, patience isn't weakness, it's power.
In the past few months, we've signed new agreements with the United Arab Emirates in artificial intelligence, with the European Union in defense and broader trade, with Germany in critical minerals, with Mexico in agri-food. We signed a free trade deal with Ecuador that reduces or eliminates tariffs on the majority of Canadian exports. And last month, in Ottawa, we concluded a historic free trade agreement with Indonesia, Canada's first bilateral free trade agreement with an ASEAN nation. This week in Kuala Lumpur, we agreed to accelerate progress on a new Canada-ASEAN free trade agreement, targeting completion of that agreement next year. Yesterday, I met with the Prime Ministers of Laos and Vietnam, as well as the President of the Philippines, to move those talks forward. Now, that deal would add about $1.5 billion to our economy, giving Canadian workers and businesses greater access to this fast-growing market. In fact, probably, arguably, the fastest-growing market in the world.
Carney laid out deal after deal. Artificial intelligence partnerships with the UAE, new defense and trade alignments with Germany, critical minerals secured with Mexico, agricultural expansion with Ecuador, and the big one, a historic free trade agreement with Indonesia, Canada's first ever with an ASEAN nation. And he's not stopping there. Ottawa is now fast-tracking a Canada-ASEAN trade pact projected to add over $1.5 billion to the economy. The contrast couldn't be sharper. While Trump talks, Carney builds. He's not chasing headlines. He's forging markets and alliances that will shape Canada's next decade. This wasn't just a press conference. It was a pivot point. Carney demonstrated what leadership looks like in a time of global volatility. Calm, strategic, results-driven. While Trump fixates on loyalty, Carney delivers outcomes. While Washington retreats, Canada expands. He's not trying to beat Trump. He's outgrowing him. And in the process, Canada has stepped into a new role. Not just a partner, but a leader. The message from Asia is clear. Canada no longer waits. It leads. Thanks for tuning in to Canada Newsline. For more stories that matter and moments that define our future, hit subscribe. This is Canada's moment, and the world is finally paying attention.